And a pleasant good evening to everyone. Welcome to The Works. I'm Keith Williams, your host. And this is a podcast where just about anything goes. No topic is off limits here. It's something that the mainstream media really does not want to do. But here at The Works, just about anything and everything goes. And tonight, we have Nikki Ballou with us today. Thank you for coming on the show.
It's a pleasure to be here, Keith. Thanks for very much.
Okay, so first of all, let everyone know who you are and what you do.
My name's Nikki Ballou. I'm originally actually an immigrant from the Middle East. I'm a Christian from Iran. When I was a very young boy, the Islamic Revolution happened in Iran, and my late father, God rest his soul, he could see the writing on the wall. He decided this was going to be a great place to raise his Christian family. So he made a plan, and he eventually got us out of Iran, and we settled where I live now, which is Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And I thank God every day for my father and his foresight to get us out of Iran, because we left tyranny and we moved to freedom. And my dad was an entrepreneur, and he was a man who really believed in uplifting people. You know what I'm saying, Keith? If
Mhm.
you were someone he knew and you were looking for work, he'd help you find a job. If you were trying to start a business, Dad would help you start that business, even if you're going to compete with him. He didn't care about that. He just wanted to help people. And if you worked for him and you were looking to buy a car or a house or an apartment, Dad would help you buy that car, that house, or that apartment if you didn't have enough money. And you might think to yourself, well, wow, who does that? Well, the late, great Napoleon Ballou, for one. Why? Well, number one is he was a Christian and he believed he'd been blessed by God. It was his duty as a Christian to share those blessings. But also, he did it because he could. He was somebody who had the financial wherewithal to be able to help his fellow man and woman. So he took action and he did it. And long and the short of that really is kind of a little bit about my backstory. I decided to become an entrepreneur because I wanted to be like my dad. And Dad used to always tell me, life is about people, not about numbers or money. Business is about people, not about numbers or money. And it's all about making a difference for your fellow man or woman. And I got into the business of helping business owners. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
I'm in the field of serving business owners, helping them add one or two zeros to their annual income while working less, 10 to 20 hours less a week. And I came from a business family, so I know and understand business. And I got my degree in business at university, my master's degree in international business. So I really understand business. But a lot of business owners I noticed don't. They're good at doing what they do, Keith, but they're not good at business. They don't understand sales and marketing, hiring and firing, balance sheet, income statements, all that stuff. So what I wanted to do is help folks who were good at what they did, but weren't necessarily good business people, become good at running a business so they could grow and scale their business. That essentially was it. And most particularly with sales and marketing, because a lot of folks in business are scared of selling. You know what I mean? They don't want to come across as salesy or pushy or anything like that. So, you know, bottom line is that they don't get business they should be getting, right? And I saw that and I thought, I can help these people. I can help them reframe selling to service. Nobody wants to be sold, but everybody wants to be served by a good, caring human being. That's a big part of what I teach people. And I teach them about how to stand out in marketing as well, so they don't sound like everybody else. That in a nutshell is me. I got 2 podcasts that I run. I've written, 8 books, many of them number one bestsellers. And I'm a dad of 2 sons that both play sports, teenage boys.
It's funny that you mentioned about the sales piece because every time you go on social media, you got people selling you stuff, and I mean I don't know about you, but to me it sounds really spammy, like like that pushy salesman at Best Buy or something. Like they're pressuring you to buy something.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. Nobody wants that, right? You don't want that. I don't want that. And good people don't want to be seen that way, right? So we teach them how to sell, but serve really. Take the attention off you needing to get the commission and put the attention on that human being needing your help.
You mentioned something that that you believe that business is not a number game, but it's about people.
That's right.
Um, I definitely would like for you to explain to the audience what you mean by that.
Well, listen, the person that you're dealing with in business, that's somebody's son, someone's husband, someone's brother, that's someone's wife, someone's daughter, that's someone's sister. That someone is very important, a hero to somebody, right? And they've got hopes, dreams, and fears, just like you. And maybe they've even been disappointed by somebody like you who promised them a lot and delivered them very little. So it's important for you to keep in mind that business, first and foremost, is about people and their problems. Business is about solving problems for people for profit. I call it Nikki Ballou's seven-figure 3P solution. Problems, people, profit. You solve acute problems for amazing people at awesome levels of profit. PPP AAA.
Why do freedom and free enterprise matter to you as an entrepreneur?
Well, I think, you can get a hint from that, from the fact that I was a Christian from Iran and I grew up in tyranny, right? Freedom is extremely important to me. It's my number one value. And if you don't have freedom, well, you can't be an entrepreneur. And, free enterprise is the basis of successful entrepreneurship. People
Mm,
try to tell you what to do or how you can do it. You can't really have a business. And that's why I think it's important for us here in the West to stand up for freedom and for free enterprise. We can't let these socialists try to change, the way of life that we have over here and turn us into something like they used to have in Eastern Europe, right?
so you mentioned something about socialism, in Europe. Are there any problems that have been, associated with that?
Well, if you look at your history, absolutely, right? I mean, after the Russian Revolution in 1917, Russia went communist. And over a period of 20, 30 years, they killed 50 million of their own people. They starved the farmers in the Ukraine, took all their farms away from them, and did something called forced collectivization, right? And when Eastern Europe, after World War II, fell under the Soviet sphere, the communist sphere, so many people's freedoms were taken away. So many people were killed for standing up for their rights. And now people who think the same way, who believe in socialism, because communism is socialism. That's all it is. You know, communism is socialism taken to its fullest extreme. Democratic socialism just means they'll find a way to get people to vote for them to take your rights away.
That's very interesting. So as a entrepreneur and a business, owner, um, what economic system would work best?
Capitalism, free market capitalism, the only one that'll work. Nothing else will work.
So it's funny that I know that you're in Canada, but in the United States, we're dealing with what they call it inflation. That's what they're dealing, that's what they're calling it. But I say that's a bunch of BS. It's not really inflation. I think it's a lot of corporations here in the United States. They are taking advantage, of people by constantly raising their, prices to increase, their profit, and they're offering less of a service, than they done before. You might not hear it in the news where you're at, but this is what we're dealing with, in the United States. And I have a problem. I have a problem with that. Also, I have a problem with is that you have a lot of small businesses that are being, neglected. For all of the loans and the grants that was, being offered, the majority of that money went to the big corporations, and not the small businesses. And I'm looking at commercials, I'm looking at advertising say, we support small business. And I was like, okay, you support small businesses, put your money where your mouth is. Stop all this talk.
Well, inflation's real, but there's no question that it's real that, larger businesses are taking advantage of their contacts within government to um, basically game the system in their own favor. So I think inflation is real and larger businesses, a lot of them are taking advantage of the situation in order to game the system in their own favor. But in a free market system, ideally, you wouldn't have a whole lot of government interference. You wouldn't have the government giving money to companies. You just let, people voluntarily decide who they want to do business with and who they don't want to do business with. And that ideally is what you want to see happen. And that used to be the case more in the United States and in the Western world, but it's been a little bit less of the case right now. Certainly since the lockdowns, government got involved and just spent trillions upon trillions of dollars to change the way in which we've been running our economy. So I think that we got to be really, really careful and not allow government to become too powerful, because if they become too powerful, they're going to completely change the way that we live in the United States. The United States is the beacon of freedom around the world. If freedom is lost in the United States, there's nowhere else for people to go. It'll be lost in the rest of the world, and we'll descend into a few hundred years of darkness and tyranny. So,
I definitely, no question about that. I definitely agree with you, on that. But we're no one having that conversation because we're distracted by politics. In the United States, we're distracted by a two-party, system that is bent on interfering in our everyday lives, and I'm totally against that. Now, I think there are certain aspects of, a society that government should have no business sticking their nose into.
100%, government is
But they do that because we allow them. We do that because we allow them to do that.
well,
And people
it's
say, you can't fight City Hall. Yes, you can. You can fight City Hall. First of all, you have to have the will, you have to have the strength, and you in this case, you had to have numbers. Now,
yeah,
this is in relationship to society, has nothing to do with business because, in business, you should never treat anyone like a number, but you should treat any, person as an individual. But as far as politics is concerned, numbers do matter.
well, numbers matter in a democratic society, but people don't understand democracy. The United States was not formed as a democracy, it was formed as a republic, but it's devolved into becoming a democracy. Problem
Mhm.
with democracies is that they work until the majority of the people realize that they can vote themselves other people's money through the treasury, which is what's been happening now, and that's what socialism is. And when that happens, pretty soon there'll be more and more votes to take money away from people who make it and give it to people who don't. And that's what's happening in the US right now. The constitutional republic has been weakened. It's more of a democracy. And there's been people that have studied this. And democracies take about 200 years to go from freedom to tyranny. Most societies start off in tyranny. And then there's a little bit of hopefulness. And then there's some people who fight to get out of that tyranny and create freedom. And then they create the freedom. And freedom brings abundance, prosperity, right? And prosperity brings about complacency. And then complacency brings about, you know, evil people who start voting um, themselves and their favored constituencies um, shares of that abundance that they didn't earn. And over time, they do more and more of that. And then the abundance starts to wear away. And then the freedoms start to go away. And then you go from freedom to tyranny. And the whole process starts again. Usually that's about from freedom to tyranny is 200 years, from tyranny to freedom's another 200 plus years. The United States has been in existence since 1776, right? So we're approaching 250 years. So the US, unfortunately, according to this theory, is on its way to losing its freedoms. And if
I
that happens,
I
unfortunately, I
agree.
think the
I see
world is
that every
screwed.
I
That's what's happening.
I see that I see that every single day. It's coming to the point where, the government would pretty much, tell us everything, to do and what not to do. It sounds more authoritative, than anything else. And, which means if we go back to your expertise, which is business, it's also going to affect, business owners, free enterprise is going to affect that. It's going to, affect entrepreneurs. It's going to affect people who want to, invest, in a small business. Which of course they say that, in the United States, small businesses make up the vast majority, of the economy. And without the small business, that 1 or 2% is not going to be able to survive. They're not going to be able to survive the social economic, climate that the United States is heading towards.
No,
They're not going to be able to carry the weight, of the whole, nation, and they're doing this out of greediness, not to serve the public, but out of greed and selfishness.
brother,
You know,
like I
and
said,
with
you got to take a look at the history of the world. This is nothing new. This cycle is part of a cycle that's been repeated dozens of times throughout history. It happened in
and I
ancient
know where we
Greece.
got and I know where we got that from. I know where
Happened,
we got that from. We got that from Europe.
it happened in ancient Greece. It happened in ancient Rome. It's been happening throughout history.
Mhm.
You know, um, this is nothing new.
Yeah, and history serves me, correctly. For a long time, you never hear of the United States, having a definite foreign policy. They normally, especially in the early years of the nation, that the United States pretty much, have been to themselves, except that, the time maybe they purchased land from France, the Louisiana Purchase, or you have the Mexican American War, and which that's how we got Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, and California, things of that nature. But other than that, they pretty much stay out of foreign affairs. And once they, decided to, go into foreign affairs, and I'm just gonna be real, they practically became, the world police. I have a problem, I have a problem with that. I have a problem with that in my opinion, because if we're talking about freedom here, as you adequately stated, then I think that, I think that each nation has the ability, to do what it needs to do to serve, its own purpose. That's just my, opinion. But going back to, your expertise, uh, which is business, and entrepreneurship. You mentioned something about, being a brand authority. So what does that looks like in your eye?
Well, you need to, again, like I was talking about before, it all starts by putting your focus not on you and on your customer. If you ask a lot of people what they do, they'll say, I'm like a real estate agent, I'm a mortgage broker, I'm a coach, I'm a, you name it, right? They talk about themselves, right? And if you ask them to tell you more, they'll go, oh, well, we're the biggest, we're the best, we've been in business the longest, right? Things like that. They just brag on themselves, right? And that doesn't work because everybody says that. Everybody sounds like that. Your eyes glaze over. If someone tells you they're a mortgage broker or a real estate agent, and we're the biggest, we're the best, we've been in business the longest, Keith, your eyes are going to glaze over. You don't want to listen anymore, right? But if somebody, instead of doing that, comes to you and says, hey, what I do actually is I help men with type 2 diabetes reverse it by losing 50 pounds, and you have type 2 diabetes, you're going to want to listen to what they have to say. If someone comes to you, like I say to my customers, and says, I help business owners add a zero to their annual income, and you want to make more money, you're going to be interested in what I have to say, right? So it's
Mhm.
all about figuring out a way to basically be relevant to people. And you do that by talking about how you help people, not about how awesome you are and how awesome what you do is.
That's some pretty good advice right there because, for example, I look at social media, quite frequently and in these business groups and someone will ask, well, what do you do? That's what I hear.
Yeah,
They're
I
talking
know.
about themselves and they talk about themselves and here's the one thing I really hate. Okay. They really don't, they really don't get into detail exactly what they do. They just like, I do this or that. Or I'm gonna give you an example. Who wants a website? Uh Send me a direct message. And I'm like, huh? I'm like, I don't want, somebody that I don't know, coming to my Facebook Messenger, and bombard me with spammy messages. Okay. That's not, that's not an entrepreneur that's, thinking the business through. And I think you have a term, and I think you have a term for that. It's called a thought leader. What is a thought leader and why should we care?
Well, a thought leader, I'll tell you, is best explained by drawing a contrast between an expert and a thought leader, right? So an expert is someone who knows something, right? They're like good at doing something. So
Mm.
experts are a dime a dozen, right? There's lots of people that are experts out there. But a thought leader is someone who's known for doing something. Thought leaders are rare and
Mm.
valuable. Another way to put it is an expert is like a cover band, while a thought leader plays original music, right? So experts aren't valuable. You don't want to be seen as an expert. You want to be seen as a thought leader because then you're the go-to man
Mm.
or woman in your area. And that means that if someone has a problem in the area that you're the thought leader in, they're probably going to think of you first, right? So let me just give you an example. Okay. What's your favorite sport, Keith?
Uh, Football, of course.
Football. What's your favorite team of all time?
What is my favorite team of all time?
Yeah.
Uh, well, in football, yeah, the Alabama Crimson Tide, the
Okay. Crimson Tide. Let's go with them.
okay.
So let's say you were going to start a college football program and you had a opportunity to hire a coach and you wanted to win national championships. Now, you could hire Bob Smith to be your coach, or you could hire Nick Saban to be your coach. Who would you pick?
Um, I mean, for me, it would be, I would, pick someone.
No, I'm giving you those two choices, Bob
Okay,
Smith or Nick Saban. Which one would you pick?
Saban.
There you go. Why?
Why would I choose him?
Yep.
Um,
What makes him special?
I would choose him because of his past experience.
Right. He has a reputation. He's won, right?
Mhm. He also has a profound effect on the player.
Yeah, that too. But he's got a reputation. He's a thought leader as far as football coaches go. He's the man.
Mhm.
In college football, besides Saban, there's not a whole lot of people that are at that level, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
That's what you're looking for when you're a thought leader. You're going to be the Nick Saban of what you do. So people look for you when they have a problem. Let's say you're a lawyer. If you're the Nick Saban of the law world, people will look for you. Let's say you're a business coach. If you're the Nick Saban of business coaching, people will look for you. You follow me? That's
Mhm.
what thought leadership means. You got to be seen based on who you are, what you've accomplished, what you've created, that you're the guy. That's what thought leadership is. That's original music versus a cover band. You with me?
And that also has to do with that also has to do with branding your company as well. Is that correct?
For sure. But branding your company is not really all that different from branding yourself. And if you're the CEO of a company, your brand becomes your company brand. So Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, those guys, they're bigger than Apple and bigger than Tesla, bigger now than Twitter, right? And what their brand is so big that they drive their companies. That's a big part of what I teach people is how to be the Steve Jobs, the Elon Musk of their industry. And that's how they add 1 to 2 zeros to their annual income.
So how can you create a compelling personal brand through thought leadership?
Well, good question. And here's what you do. I'll tell you a story of one of my clients. Her name was Adele. Adele was a coach, and she'd been trying to build herself a good brand and a good business, but she wasn't doing too well. She was really good at what she did, but business wasn't doing too well. On a good month, she made 2 grand, right? On a bad month, she made $500, right? And the problem was that she was trying to do everything by spending money on ads and social media. And she spent over $125,000 with no result, right? No
Mhm.
result. So when she was introduced to us, we saw that she was just trying to do things without any clarity to her message. So her message that got really, really clear was when people were going through, marriage trouble, like looked like they were going to break up, Adele had this big, bold promise like she'd put your marriage back together. You follow me?
Mhm.
So we helped her say it like that. Like, if your marriage looked like it's going to break up and you don't want it to, I'll help you put it back together. So we helped her do that. We helped her get out there and start talking to people who were having marriage trouble. And guess what? Within 3 months, she went from making $500 to $2,000 a month to making $20,000 to $50,000 a month. And that's just by having a powerful personal brand, being known as the go-to person who helps put marriages back together.
So just being direct, just being direct and just come out with it.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
And
this is
the
this is
with
what
it
this is
is
what I can
what
do.
you do to help people, not you. Remember, put the attention on them, take the attention off you.
And ladies and gentlemen, this is to the audience, this is something that you have to think, through. It's something that you don't have, it's something that should not be thrown together. So this is a thought process, that comes in. And that's where, we talk about the concept of being a thought, leader.
Yeah, buddy. That's
Because
right.
I think everyone treats a business like it's like it's microwave. take some food, put it in the microwave, about 90 seconds later, it's ready. It's definitely does not work like that. Now, and so also you probably answered this question too about, having a compelling personal brand through thought leadership. You answered that question,
I did just right now.
answered that question, already. But then it becomes a time where then there's a comes a time that you will have to narrow your market, niche. What does that look like?
Well, that's a good question too. So I'll tell you another story. I had a young man um, that I was introduced to many years ago. He was very young when I met him. He was just 25 years old, and his name was Dan, and he was a personal fitness trainer. Dan was good fellow. You know what I mean? Like kind of fellow you want to be friends with, and you'd want to see him succeed in life, right? Problem with Dan was he was really good at what he did as a personal fitness trainer, but he was a terrible business owner. You know what I mean? He just you asked him what you do, which I did, and he said, "Oh, I can help anybody do anything. I can help them lose weight. I can help them get strong. I can help them go into competitions." And I'm like, "Okay, buddy, that's not going to work. We got to narrow your focus." He goes, "No, no, no, but I really can do it." I go, "Really? Sounds like you can do anything for anybody with a wallet and a pulse." We both laughed, right? He goes, "That's funny." And I go, "Yeah, I know it's funny, but you know,
Actually, is
that's what it sounds like, right?" And he said, "Okay, okay, I guess I can narrow. All right, I got it. Let me work with doctors. My dad's a doctor." I said, "Okay, that's good. Your dad's a doctor." He said, "Also, doctors make a lot of money." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's not a good message." But he said, "I'm going to give it a shot." I said, "Okay, you give it a shot." So he gave it a shot, and unfortunately, it didn't work. I said, "We need to change this, man. This isn't going to work." He said, "Okay, okay, okay. What if I narrow some more?" I go, "All right. What do you have in mind?" He said, "Cardiologists." He said, "Cardiologists, they make more money than doctors." I'm like, "Oh my God, buddy, you're not getting it." And I said, try something else." He goes, "No, no, no, I'm going to give this a shot." Gave it a shot. It didn't work. And then through luck, through serendipity, through the grace of God, he was introduced to a Paralympian. This guy had a missing leg from childhood, but the two of them started working together, and it worked out really well. You know what I'm saying, Keith?
Mhm.
And he got this guy in good shape. This guy went to some competition and won some medals, right? So seriously good stuff. You know what I mean? And then he comes to me and he goes, "Oh, okay, Nikki, I think I finally get what you mean about don't focus on the money, focus on the people. I love working with this fellow. And what I want to do now is I want to work with more people with missing limbs." And I'm like, "Okay, that's a great idea." So he starts working with people with missing limbs. Keith, in 6 weeks, he signed up 400 clients. Why? Because he narrowed his focus. He stopped thinking about the money, he started thinking about being of service to people. And then after he did all that, he was able to get people to buy. Now, keep in mind, he was a personal fitness trainer who used to work with people one-on-one. He couldn't do that anymore. He had too many clients. He had to change his business model to group coaching. And he went from making $1,200 a month to making $100,000 a month. Why? He narrowed his focus. He started working with a group of people, and it wasn't about the money. It was about doing something good for people who needed his help.
Okay, so now we have that person, but we also have two other types of people. You got the salesy type person, and then you have what is called a charlatan marketer. What in the world is that?
Well, that's a good question. A charlatan marketer is somebody who is really good at selling, but they don't really care about people, and they don't care whether they give people results. I'm sure you've run into them all your life. They're really good at sweet talking you, but when push comes to shove, they don't deliver anything good for you.
Oh
So
yeah, try going to Best Buy sometime.
There
They
you go.
they like be waiting. They be like waiting at the door.
Yeah, there you
'Cause
go.
they be waiting
So,
at the door because the more, you know, the more that you pay for something, the more they're gonna get in commission. I
right.
can't stand them type of, can't
We
stand them
call
type
that commission breath.
of commission breath.
Yeah, you can
But I
smell
never
it on
heard the
them.
term, charlatan marketer. I heard of the word, charlatan, before in Christianity, because that's what, they pretty much call a false teacher or a false prophet,
Yeah,
a charlatan. So I,
this is a false business plan, or a false marketer.
yes, I thought that, that was pretty good. And then you have that salesy, spammy,
Yeah, we talked about
type
that
of
at the
stuff.
beginning of the interview for sure.
Yeah,
That's, I nobody likes that. You don't like it, I don't like it.
this is especially true, when you're talking about, for example, do you want to give a TED talk? Do you want to be a coach?
Yep.
Okay. And if you sign up, next thing you know, your Facebook messages is blown up, with messages, and then you get a ton of email, and they're like real salesy too. I'm like,
Yep,
you you
100%,
get
brother.
you get the idea. It's it's nerve wracking, and then they probably spend hundreds or maybe thousands, of dollars doing this, and they're not getting anywhere because number one, they're not being direct. You know, they're not being direct, and and what they do. And you said so yourself. They're focusing more, on themselves and what they done, rather than what the people need. And their niche is too broad. Yeah, have you ever been on a have you ever been on a landing page?
Of course, all the
You know,
time.
it's kind of like I'm writing a 20-page it's kind of like I'm writing a 20-page, paper. They never get to the point to like the very end. I think after 30 seconds, I'm out. I can't I can't sit there, and scroll all the way down those 20 pages, to find out, what they're selling, and and how much it's going to cost. But you have that. And unfortunately, people pay, thousands of dollars to have those type of, websites designed, and it does absolutely nothing, for their bottom line. I try to tell people that as a web designer, but they're not hearing.
Like I said, man, that's why I teach what I teach. If people understand that they need to take the focus off themselves and put it on people, and put it on what the people that are in front of them are dealing with. Everybody's got problems. Your job should be to solve painful, acute problems. That's what I teach people. And if you
Right.
do that,
And
it's very effective. You'll make a lot of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions.
another thing I'm also seeing is that people are doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Now, you and I both know that that's not going to happen.
Nope, that's the definition of insanity, according to Albert Einstein.
Right. And when you tell people, there's a different way, or doing it. No, 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 I'm going to, stick with what I know. That's what I call living in your comfort zone.
Yes, sir.
Now, why do most people live in their comfort zone, and how can you get them out of it?
Well, that's a good way for us to wrap up this conversation. So there are 4 qualities that you need to have if you want to be a successful businessman. You know what I'm saying, Keith?
Mhm.
So quality number one is you need to be decisive. To be decisive is like you need to cut off all other options, right? That's the word decide means to kill off other options, right?
Mhm.
So the root of the word decide is side, right? You know, there's a lot of other words with side in it, like homicide, suicide, patricide, regicide, matricide. All of them have to do with killing things off. So deciding is killing off the alternative to victory. So number one is you got to make a decision that you're going to be successful. You're in it to win it. You can't be one of these hobbyists that's just going to kick tires and say, I'll get back to you. I'll think about it. Let me have a seance with my ancestors. Let me ask my dog, right? You can't do that,
Man,
right?
I hear that a lot. I was like, I said, man, I said those folks cannot help. They can't help. Oh,
No.
please.
So, secondly, you have to be committed. By committed, I mean, you can't be saying, I'm going to do this for a couple months. If it works, great. If it doesn't, oh well. No, you got to say, I'm in it to win it. Thirdly, you got to be coachable. You need coaches and mentors, and you got to take their advice. Can't be trying to do it on your own. If you knew how to do it on your own, you would have already done it, right?
Mhm.
One of my clients was a famous author by the name of Robin Sharma, right? Robin Sharma wrote the famous book, The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, sold like 15 million copies. And he used to tell me, Nikki, um, if you ever want to double your income in a year, triple your investment in personal and professional development. And I go, what do you mean? He said, you got to buy the courses, hire the coaches, join the peer groups, attend the conferences. You got to just triple your investment and all that. And I did it, and he was right. I doubled my income. And then finally, you have to be resourceful. Resourceful. Doesn't matter how much money you have or don't have. What matters is how bad do you want change. And I'll tell you this last story about myself. So when I was, about 10, 15 years ago or so, my then wife decided she didn't want to be married to me anymore, right? And um, it, it, it caught me by surprise. Maybe it shouldn't have, but it did. And I was in a bad spot. My business spiraled. And I went to a conference. I saw a man deliver a talk. And I really, really liked this man's talk. So I approached him at the end and I introduced myself and told him my story and said, I think I need to hire you. Now, keep in mind, at that time, I was not making any money. I was sleeping on my mother's couch. Grown man sleeping on his mother's couch, not good, right? So he said, okay, you can hire me, right? And he said, but my minimum fee is $5,000 for 5 hours of my time. And I don't offer any guarantees. I get paid upfront in advance, and there are no refunds. And I was like, damn. I just looked at him and I said, I don't have that kind of money. He said, I know. I'm going to give you some free coaching though. And I'm like, free coaching. All right. I love it. Give it to me. And he said, it doesn't matter how much money you make or don't make. It's not about the money. And I looked at him, I said, it's not, because I thought it was all about the money. You know what I mean? Because I didn't have $5,000, right? And he said, no, what it's about is how bad do you want change? He said, you're separated from your wife, you're sleeping on your mother's couch, and your business is tanking. How much longer are you willing to put up with this? Now, Keith, that stung. You know what I mean? That stung. I didn't like it, but he was right. So I said, give me a couple days. And back then, I was a personal fitness trainer too, back then. So I had a couple of folks I was talking to, but they had made a decision on to move forward or not, right? So I had a lot of urgency in me, and I walked over to my car. I drove home, and I made a couple of calls. First call I made was to a fella who had been hemming and hawing, and he took my call. He said, "Oh, hi, Mickey." I'm like, "Hey, I said, look, I got good news for you. And he said, oh yeah, what is it? I said, you're fat and you need to lose weight, and I'm broke and I need money. So let's make a deal. I'm going to train you for half price, the last price I gave you. But here's the catch. You got to say yes now, and you got to give me the money right now. So he said yes. And I called another guy. I said the same thing to him, and he said yes. So I had a couple $1,000, 1,000 each, right? And I made an appointment to go see this fella. And I was proud as punch. And I put the 2,000 down on his desk. I said, here you go. And he said, I said 5, not 2. And I was like, oh God. So I asked him, hey, Bill, his name was Bill. Bill, how many times have you given this speech to people? The speech that you gave me a couple days ago. He said, over the years, maybe 30, 40 times. I said, oh, that many, huh? He said, yep. I said, besides me, who else came to you with any money? And he said, oh, that's easy. You're the first. And I go, oh, I'm the first. He said, yep. I said, well, I'll tell you what, you take my money and I'll sign a contract telling you that I'll give you the rest in 30, 60 days, whatever the case may be, right? So he agreed. And within 6 months, I made $100,000. I paid him back early. And the rest is history. And I didn't have the resources, the money, but I was resourceful because I badly want to change. And Tony Robbins says the same thing. It doesn't matter what resources you have. What matters is how resourceful you are. And I say this to you, if you have these 4 qualities, being decisive, committed, coachable, and resourceful, you will win. If you don't, you won't. And that's my wrap up story, my friend.
Well, I think we're gonna end on that note. Uh, there's nothing really else to say, about that. But uh, please tell everyone how they're able to get in contact with you.
Um, well, I'm everywhere on social media, Nikki Billu. But the best place to get a hold of me if you're a business owner is go to my website, ecircleacademy.com. I got lots of free resources. And if you want to have a conversation, I'll provide you with what I call a success coaching call. It's free of charge. We'll look at your business, where you're at, where you want to get to, and what you need to do differently. And I'll lay out a blueprint for you. And you go there to ecircleacademy.com/appointment. That's ecircleacademy.com/appointment.
All right. Well, normally we give the guest a last word of anything that he or she wants to say to the audience. What would be that last word?
Um, you got to believe. No, times are tough. And I know maybe you're a little nervous about how next year is going to be because the last 3 years have been, to say the least, challenging, but you got to believe. And don't do it alone. Join the groups, find the mentors, hire the people you need to be around, and make sure that you do life with people, not by yourself.
Thank you so much, Nikki, for giving us some pearls of wisdom on this evening. We're coming to the close of 2022. It's time to do something different. It's time to think different. That's
Thank
it.
you.
Uh, thank you for being part of the works. I'm Keith Williams, your host, and be sure to tune us next Sunday for another great episode. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your weekend. Bye for now.